All right. Now that the dust has settled, it's time for us to do our post-election review that we've never done before, as we are not a political party. But, judging from the comments of these two parties post-election of, here's our plan, repeat exactly what we just did. Again. Doesn't look like either of these parties are going to do a proper review, so gladly. Here's where you went wrong, as foretold by someone who unironically gets sexual pleasure from you failing. The seat of Melbourne. Adam Bass. I'm sorry to keep gloating, but it's been so long. I'm a political incel. Christ, no wonder my main audience is Reddit. I reckon I'll be on my deathbed and my last thought that I'll have is... Max lost his seat. Yes, we wrote that in the script as comes and dies. Let's start with Labor's review because it's the shortest. It really only needs to be 2 words.
Flawless victory.
All right, 2 more words.
Finish him.
He lost his own seat. First time that's ever happened to an opposition leader in Australian federal politics. Sucked in. That was brutal enough. But by about 8 p.m, you could see so much red in Parliament. It was like that scene in The Shining. And right when you thought it couldn't get any better, just when it looked like a thoroughly drugged Adam Bant was going to limp over the line.
Get over here.
In comes the postal votes, out goes Bant. Eat shit, you unimpressive middle management looking Who else in Australian history can claim that they have 2 chief scalps, and I do emphasise scalps, under their belt? Labor picked up seats in places it hasn't won in decades, like Banks, Bonner, and of course, Petrie. Who could forget where that is? Or any of the aforementioned seats, for that matter. Chris Pine lost his old seat. That hadn't elected a Labor MP since 1969. That's gone. Menzies. I think it's safe to assume that a seat named after the founder of the Liberal Party would be a safe seat for the Liberal Party. Not anymore. Never elected a Labor MP ever until this election. I'd say that he'd be turning in his grave, but I reckon he's too fat to do it. Barara? You know what Barara covers? All those suburbs in Sydney that you drive by.
Nice, happy families having a picnic. Everyone's got a golden retriever.
Labor should not be winning golden retriever seats. They win staffy seats. And this time, they didn't, but they got fucking close. Look, this child nearly beat this obvious megachurch pastor. This is how fucked the Liberals are. Their safe seats are now marginal seats. Keep in mind, this came after months of the media class telling us over and over with glee in their shitty Leichhardt accent, well, it looks like Australia's heading for a minority government. Nah, it looks like it's heading for a minority opposition. I'm sorry if you're upset about the result, but surely it is of great solace to everyone in this country that Rachel Withers is so much more upset. This is how wrong they were. The last time there was a victory of this magnitude for Labor, World War II. The Tories had to arm the Japanese before this country thought, maybe they're just pretending to be patriotic for votes. That's how high stakes it has to be. In fact, it has to be higher. 1996 higher. This is on par with Howard's wipeout. 94 seats apiece. This is why Albanese will go down in history as opposite land Howard. Unless I have anything to do about it, as I personally think he should go down as
Chairman Albo.
That's right. To commemorate ushering in his glorious workers' paradise, we're selling shirts. May death come swiftly to his few remaining enemies. Why did it happen? Well, until the review comes out, anyone who says anything is just basing it off of vibes, except me, who obviously knows what happened. The defeated parties will say, it's because Dutton tried to do a Trump impression and it sucked. Yes, you cope with it any way you like, Adam. Your tears sustain me. I'm sure that was an element. Hating the other guy is definitely enough to get you over the line, but again, here's the line. And here's where they are. I'm just saying it was a little more than that. Last election was a we hate the other guy election. This election, I think when the day came closer, the public agreed with us instead of the press and whinge merchants, frankly, which was essentially...
Wait, why are we getting them?
Look, fellers, the first female leader of the party.
Never mind, let's just get him! Yeah!
I think the public thought, despite the press vibes, what was so bad about having a stable, highly competent government in power after a decade of... What the fuck even was that? I think it's because Labor reminded the electorate, oh, that's right, you can actually spend tax dollars on things that aren't Bronwyn Bishop's helicopter rides. I think they noticed the $10,000 extra dollars in their pockets, the record-breaking renewable revolution getting rolled out, the huge investments in housing, free TAFE, future made in Australia, the transfer of hundreds of billions of dollars back to workers with historic closing the loopholes bill, reversing the slow privatisation of Medicare, bringing back Godsky. I'm telling you, for a supposed government that didn't do much, they sure did a lot. I think everyone everyone noticed they did, apart from the chronically online TikTok addicts that have tweeted themselves into a pulpy stew made out of former brain, which, speaking of, the Greens review. And look, to the Green supporters who watch this channel, why? You just like being mad, don't you? And what a coincidence. I like you being mad. Don't worry though, I do know what it's like to lose. I know that it feels like the last hope for Palestinian liberation has been snuffed with the devastating loss of
Stephen Bates. Whoever the fuck that was.
If it's any consolation, at least you'll have the true spiritual backbone of your party to keep the torch flickering through these dark times. One of those old women with white hair who you just know has baseless RFKS views on health that comes free with literally every Greens party in the Anglosphere. Having members in the House isn't all it's cracked up to be anyway. The Democrats never won any seats in the House either. And look at them. Oh, the Greens are currently going through their version of a post-electoral review, which, unlike other parties, starts before the election every time because they're not tethered to reality. Yeah, we'll gain like 4 seats in Melbourne, 2 in Brisbane, 1 in Sydney, 1 in Perth, clean sweep of Canberra. Check this map out I made on mapchart.net. Mapchart? Obviously, Yamps.com is the far superior electoral map website. There would have turned out they lost seats, much like the doomsday cults they clearly base their political movement on. When they get Judgment Day wrong, just go into immediate embarrassing denial. No, it's actually fine because we got our highest vote ever. Geez, for a party that never shuts up about how much they hate Donald Trump, they sure love to copy him, saying what he said about his 2020 loss.
I got more votes than any Republican in history by far. In fact, I got more votes than any sitting president in history by far.
No, and that's not that difficult to do, but the population keeps going up. In fact, it's even dumber for the Greens here because we've got compulsory voting. They might as well have written, the Greens secured more votes this election than Edmund Barton. You lost 3/4 of your lower house seats. Percentage-wise, your vote is down. This is a W to them. Internal review done, apparently. Okay, that was easy. Now that that's out of the way, it's time for Maxie's and Adam's farewell pity tour to explain to everyone how they were simultaneously victims and winners, even though both of them didn't win their seats. Blaming preferential voting for their loss. The fact that their own vote went backwards by 3 and 5 points respectively, while Labor's went up by over 5 points, never came up in their explanations for some reason. That wasn't the reason they lost. No, it was that Labor was boosted by Liberal Party preferences. Liberal Party preferences, by the way, were fine last election when the Greens got in on Liberal Party preferences, but now that they flowed to Labor, ooh, Purple Party, they're all in it together to get me and just me. Look, that is barely an exaggeration of their argument. They have the mental framework of a 5-year-old. A system is awesome as long as it benefits them. As soon as that exact same system stops benefiting them, it's a conspiracy against them. It's the strangest coincidence. Now, after years of cringy TikToks explaining to the public how preferential voting works, it's actually awesome thoughts, now their supporters hate it again, like they did in the good old days, arguing that we should have proportional voting, even though we already have that in the Senate. But they want it in the lower house too, just to make 2 truly useless chambers where nothing gets done. Max on Hack being interviewed about his feelings. Honestly, that made me ashamed of my generation because no other time in history would that be remotely acceptable, that you could waste taxpayer money to literally air your grievances.
One of the things I'm quite happy about at the moment is I don't have to spend more time in the House of Representatives because, like, basically every time I stood up, I got screamed and yelled at. Like, in terms of a workplace, it was bloody awful.
This guy?
And I hear that yelling there because you should be ashamed of yourself. Because no, this party of the worker, this so-called party of the worker, really the party for bankers, is happy to make the vast majority of us wait forever while banks only have to wait a day.
Oh, what a one-way street of bullying you had to endure, Max, in this place that everyone knows has just been this for the last 100 years.
That's it! Everyone shut the fuck up! Member of Bullawang has the call! Right, speak!
Fuck you, you fucking dick.
Seriously, his final and parting words of why he's totally not mad that he's lost his seat is, I just can't believe that place would do that to me. I thought I could do that to them. What a sook. If they do end up doing an honest post-election review, I'm guessing blocking homes for homeless people for 1.5 years is a self-admitted political tactic. Read it. That's him gloating about fucking over struggling people to force a discussion, which, sorry, one more time. Oh, how did that strategy work out for you, Maxie boy? Now you're the one that's not in a house. No reflection from Adam either. Band 730 report post-electoral autopsy was basically Sarah Ferguson asking, like a broken vending machine, can you reflect on why you think you lost? And he can't, apparently. He's a vampire. No reflection at all. Just rattling off the same talking points that led to his loss. It was just two broken machines malfunctioning in front of each other for 10 minutes. The new leader immediately claiming, I'm not Adam Band, and then going on to explain exactly how she's Adam Band.
Now the Labor Party have a choice. They can work with us. They can work with us and help people and protect nature, or they can choose to work with the coalition. They're going to need to pick because they don't have the numbers in the Senate to pass the legislation that they want to work on.
Claiming Australia has given them, quote, a strong Senate vote and a mandate to hold Labor to account. This was the final cope they settled on, that because of their runaway popularity of not gaining a single seat and losing 3/4 of theirs in the lower house, they alone hold the balance of power in the Senate. Again, choosing to negate that the reason that they do is because Labor did so well that they reduced the rest of the crossbench to not even a bench. The few nobodies remaining will have the most boring, irrelevant 3 years of their lives. So I would suggest to David Pocock, go back to your footy roots, kick the rugby ball around the Parliament lawn, but he's got no one left to kick it to. In short, Greens, this isn't a mandate. You just survived the purge, unfortunately. And look, to any Green supporters still watching, have a think about what loudly blocking bills in the Senate actually accomplished other than making you feel like you're morally superior for keeping homeless people homeless somehow. If you go beyond the stock standard response of the Greens blocked legislation because it was shit, have a think about who told you it was shit. Was it the Greens? The Australia Institute? Gee, I wonder if they'd have any vested interest in saying that. More importantly, did the strategy of having months-long obstructionist public spats over adding piddly face-saving amendments to critical legislation where the party had to back down multiple times and had to actively lie about the piddly little amendments they got through, like, we got $3.5 billion for public housing. They're lying about $2 billion of that was fucking up construction contracts and delaying homes for tens of thousands of people, really worth a token $1.5 billion of unspecified spending that'll theoretically lead to more housing? I'll answer for you. No, especially when they got it by blocking almost $32 billion Labor ended up spending on housing for years to get it. The fact that the Greens, as a party, are either stupid enough not to understand that, or worse, like Max, do understand it and don't care. They only care that blocking vital legislation revs up their base, which is hipster MAGA. This is something I want to stress though. I'm sure a lot of people voted for the Greens because they felt like it was the right thing to do. I mean, that is their branding, but that's all that movement is. Branding. It's a lot of TikToks and carefully curated articles aimed at getting you riled up at what a shit job the government is doing while actively hiding anything good the government does. If all I wanted was clicks, it's exactly what I'd be doing too. It's easy, but it's also scummy. It's dishonest. I mean, the amount of people who thought Labor's final housing announcement was the only thing that they were doing about housing. How do you think they got to that conclusion? If you support the Greens, I know I've been taking a lot of shots at them in this video, but seriously, the entire point of that party, their entire existence, depends on pretending everything's always shit endlessly. And that means they will and do destroy really important progress. Progress that is always hidden from you, as who else in the country, old or new media, ever reports on anything good the government does. Anyway, to quote a great man that's clearly not insane, I ain't spending any more time on it. In this video at least. In the future for Green supporters, I'll have more olive branches and more olive sticks to drub you with. The Liberal Review. I think you could sum up theirs at a single sentence. Rename your party, spent force. I'm not kidding either. I seriously think the Liberal Party might actually be done. I think they've got maybe one turn to turn it around under the visionary leadership of Susan Lee and... Oh, sorry, I forgot Angus is still in the party. 3 months. You have to understand, Labor can be reduced to a fucking life of pie raft of MPs like they were in Queensland and come back, but that's because there's a little more holding the Labor movement together than pure self-interest. There's no true believers in the coalition. I'm convinced the reason they're called the coalition is because they're a coalition of cockheads, and if the brand doesn't suit their personal ambitions anymore, they will change in a second, as proven by 2 of their most prominent remaining names left, immediately right after the election, not remaining. I'm gonna try and get a better seat on the Titanic, and nope, I didn't even get that. I think we only think, no, the Liberal Party's always going to be around because it's been around as long as I was conscious and anything before that didn't happen. But it did. 1943, the United Australia Party, the actual one, not the Clive Palmer one. Fuck, he loves bringing back dinosaurs, hey? But Robert Menzies, after living every rich kid's gap year fantasy of finding himself in London, spent so much time there that his own party got pissed off at him and forced him to resign. Their election campaign was dead on arrival because the UAP just couldn't work with their coalition partners, the Country Party. They didn't have any policies to sell the public, so they just ran the scare campaign of Labor can't govern. Hey, some things never go out of style, eh? Losing the 1943 election essentially killed off the UAP as a political party. Listen to this quote from Menzies himself. The name United Australia Party has fallen into complete disregard. It no longer means anything. Many of my own stronger supporters in my own electorate declined to have anything to do with the party as such. To establish a new party under a new name, it is, I think, essential to recognise that the new groups and movements which sprang up in the 6 months before the election were all expressions of dissatisfaction with the existing setup. Doesn't that all sound a bit too familiar to the Liberal Party now? I'm not a betting man. Well, I am, and I'm terrible at it, so I'm probably wrong. But seeing as that could have been written last week, if anyone in the Liberal Party had even half the foresight of Menzies, does anyone really think any of these issues are going to be fixed before the next election? Like, at least Menzies had Murdoch, Packer, and the rest of the Australian elite backing and bankrolling his new party. They're not doing that now. Which leads to review of party number 4, the Teals. Major dot point, drop the I'm an independent charade, call yourself the TED Talk Party. This is what half the media class sees the future, cause if there's one thing Australians outside the most affluential, removed electorates in the country like, it's snobs. That's not even a joke. Every time I talk about the Teals, I receive a lot of shit from people who keep saying some variation of, why do you shit on the independents? Labor's just like liberal light. The party that blatantly advertises that they're liberal light, they're not liberal light for some reason. What? It's astonishing to me how anyone could be stupid enough to fall for such an obvious ruse. They must be the same people that when British Petroleum changed after one too many oil spills. No, the sign changed to a BP. It's a different gas station, my dude. Do you even know what the Teals are? They're what used to be known as the wet faction of the Liberals, which basically means the unlikable pussy faction as opposed to the funny dumbass faction. Let's have a look at the so-called independents. Di Lee, former Liberal member and New South Wales Liberal candidate. Allegra Spender, daughter of Liberal MP John Spender and granddaughter of UAP MP Percy Spender. But no, unlike everyone else on planet Earth, she's not captive to the same Freudian and environmental circumstances we all have. She's her own woman. Kate Chaney, granddaughter of former Liberal MP Fred Chaney and niece of former Liberal MP Fred Chaney. Fuck, what a confusing sentence. The sugar daddy nepo baby behind these independents, Simon Holmes a court, key fundraiser for Josh Frydenberg that is such a narcissist that he decided to start his own Liberal Party, basically because he got kicked out of a Liberal Party fundraiser for being allowed. These are just Liberals that started to feel embarrassed for supporting the Liberals at charity dinners. That's all. It's not new either. The Democrats were created as a merger of splinter groups from the Liberal Party, led by disaffected Liberal MP Don Chipp. Same thing, we need a new style of politics. It wasn't. In fact, I think the only reason they are independents now is because the Democrats' name is already sullied, and that would eat at them too, because I can guarantee you every last one of them, when they're making a speech in Parliament, they're LARPing as Hillary Clinton in their heads. I mean, all that said though, does make the Liberals weaker. I'll take divided cockheads over united cockheads any day. This is why I think they're fucked though. They're all too self-absorbed to put aside their differences to keep the dirty workers away from pulling the levers, and I couldn't be happier. So keep living in your self-constructed silos based purely on the aesthetic you personally want the Liberals to look like. For everyone else, just know, even if the opera lovers triumph over the mining executives and the Liberal Party does become the TED Talk Party, it'll just become the new non-Labor Party. That's all. It's the same game. It's always the same game. It'll never not be the same game. There's the Labor Party and the not Labor Party. And there you have it. My dissection of where the major parties stand after what was probably the most consequential election of the last 20 years. Why? Well, as Ross Garnaut, the architect of Labor's climate policy, pointed out, this is the public saying, we get it. We get that the last 15 years was us being duped by the Liberals and Greens into stalling on climate action. That's a generation of time that was wasted, that we could have had Labor doing exactly what it's doing now, which is making us a green tech superpower. See this video here. What a shame. What a tragedy that all that time was completely sunk, but second best time to plant a tree is today and all that. What I'm particularly happy about is, looks like Albo got the chance to do what Labor has only ever been afforded once before in this federation's entire history, a decade of red. Last time we had that with Hawke and Keating, we were able to fatten the pig so much that we were basically living off that fat for the next 4 decades. We'll do an explainer on why that is soon, but in the meantime, buy a shirt. Final review, sucked into everyone that is an Albo.